Christion Willett here, the voice of my generation. Today we're going to be talking about my life and how God has always been faithful. Even when I wasn't faithful, y'all, God was still faithful in my life. And I want to explain to you that when you start to be faithful to God, because God is already faithful to you, he's going to open up more doors and more opportunity, and he's going to reveal some things to you in life that you just can't see because you're not being faithful. See, when you're not being faithful, you can't see what God is fully trying to do in your life. You can't see the purpose that God has for your life. You can't see the walk that God wants you to take in your life because you're being unfaithful. But when you start to walk in faithfulness with God, he's going to reveal everything to you. He's going to give you the peace in your heart, the peace in your mind, the peace in your soul that's going to allow you to see and envision everything that you ever wanted for your life because you're being faithful, because you're being obedient, and because you're being disciplined, because you are committed to God. But y'all, I promise you, there's been some times in my life where I ain't been faithful, y'all, and God was still faithful to me. Where I was going through the darkest moments of my life and I wasn't faithful, but God was still faithful. When I was going through hardships, trials and tribulations, depression, God was still faithful. And what I want to talk to you today is that God is still faithful even when you're not faithful. But when you start to be faithful to God, obedient and disciplined, man, God is going to reveal some things to you that you just can't see when you're not being faithful. What I need you guys to do first, I want you to like and subscribe so that we can change 1 billion lives. I want to help change 1 billion lives with my voice. And I need you all's help because I need you all to help change lives with your voice. Because when I change your life with my voice, I want you to take that same energy into the world, and I want you to change people's lives with your voice. And that's how we change 1 billion lives together. I can't change 1 billion lives alone. I can't reach 1 billion people alone. But when you all do it, when you all put in the work, when you all give back, we all changing 1 billion lives together. So make sure that you like and subscribe so that we can be great together. Christion Willett, the voice of my generation. All right, let's get straight into it. I want to talk about this story because I believe that it is the turning point of my life when I start to understand that I have to be faithful to God. And because I want to tell you right now that God has always been faithful, even when I wasn't faithful, even when I wasn't doing right, even when I turned my back to God, even when I was making mistakes, even when I was in my darkest point of my life, God was still faithful. And God will be faithful to you, even though you're not faithful to him. God will still provide for you, even though you're not faithful to him. God will still be good to you, even though you're not good to him. And I need you to understand that even when you're not faithful, God is still faithful. Because God's love is perfect. Because God is our Father. God is our creator. God is our provider. And God is still faithful to you, even when you're not faithful to him. Even when you're making mistakes, even when you're living wrong, God is still faithful. And that is why we got to be faithful to God, because he's been faithful to us since day one. Even when we was doing wrong, even when we not living right, God is still faithful to us. And that's the story of my life. Even though I wasn't faithful, God was still faithful. And I want you to understand that your life is going to change when you start to be faithful to him. You'll see your life change. You'll see so many things come to life. You'll see so many great things happen for yourself when you start to be faithful to God. And I'm not saying your life is going to be perfect. I'm not saying you're not going to go through hard things. But when you start to be faithful to God, you're going to start to understand more, and you will see more because you have a different life lens in your life because you're faithful to God. And so let's get straight into my story. So, right, we're going to talk about me losing my scholarship, but I want to go more in depth of how I wasn't faithful to God, but he was still faithful to me. So when I was in high school, I had a few scholarship opportunities, but I lost them because there were other kids who had those same scholarship offers and they took them before me. So I was sitting in a position in high school where I didn't have anywhere to play football. I didn't have any school that I got accepted into yet. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And during that time period, when I didn't have nowhere to go, God was still faithful. God was still making a way for me to get a scholarship. God was still providing me opportunity to go play football and get a scholarship and get an education where it was paid for. And so I never forget the day when I finally got the scholarship. I've been through so many ups and downs. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do to pay for college. And I was trying to figure out what school I was going to go to. But I finally remember the day when I got pulled into the office at this school, Southeast Missouri. And I sat down with the coach. And he looked me and my mom in the eyes and said, "We're going to give your son a scholarship to play football here." And I never forget that moment. It was the proudest moment of my life because I done been through so much where I lost scholarships, fighting for scholarships, didn't have a scholarship. And when I got to Southeast Missouri, sat in the office with that coach, he looked me and my mom in the eyes and he said, "We're going to bless you with a scholarship. We're going to give your son a scholarship to come play football here. We believe in your son. We think that he can be a great help to our team and our program. We think he's the right fit and we want to give him a scholarship." Y'all, God was being faithful. I didn't deserve that scholarship. I wasn't faithful. Yeah, I was faithful to the grind of football, but I wasn't faithful to God. But he still blessed me even though I wasn't faithful. And I remember when I got that scholarship, I was so grateful. I was so happy. And I just was so proud. My mama was so proud. And I remember thinking to myself, man, God, you're so faithful even though I ain't been faithful. And I remember that's the first time in my life when I really started to say to myself, I got to be more faithful to God. God has been too good for me. I got to be more faithful to God. So when I went to South Missouri, everything was going great. I mean, everything was going great. I was working hard. The coaches was pouring into me. They noticed me, man. My safeties coach, he just believed in me. He brought me in. He was like, man, you going to play this year. I remember doing the summer workouts. He was, man, you going to play this year. Everything was going great. I was healthy. God was faithful. I was faithful to God. I was praying. Everything was going good. But then I remember, boom, adversity started to strike. I started getting injured again. I started losing myself mentally. I stopped praying. I stopped reading my word. I stopped being faithful to God. And so because I stopped being faithful, when things weren't going my way, I didn't know what to do. So I reverted back to that attitude, that mindset of just, I don't care. That mindset of, it ain't going right for me. I ain't never gonna be successful. I'm a loser. Having that mindset where where I wasn't being faithful to God, y'all. So it was easy for me to quit. It was easy for me to give up. It was easy for me to think and do whatever I wanted to do. And I never forget going through that time period. My attitude was off. My mindset was off. I wasn't doing right. I came back from injury, but I just wasn't myself. And I remember my coach pulled me in the office like 3 or 4 times, had one-on-ones with me. Man, what's going on? Tell me what's really going on. What's bothering you? What's your problem? And I remember I just had this attitude like, man, you crazy. I ain't got no problem. Ain't nothing wrong with me. But I wasn't being faithful to God. And I never forget my coach pulled me in the office. And my coach, he tried to correct me about a mistake I made in the classroom. Disrespecting my teacher. Talking back to the tutor. And my coach was trying to correct me and said, this got to change. You got to do something better. And I got an attitude with my coach. And I said, Coach, I don't even care about this. I leave. You always pulling me in your office. You always talking crazy. Man, I leave, Coach. I don't care about this. And I stormed out of my coach office. My coach sent me a text message and said, you are not welcome back on this team and you lost your scholarship. So now coach trying to send me back home. I lost my scholarship. But God, I promise you, when I lost my scholarship, listen, watch this. God was so faithful. The school still allowed me to finish out my school year and keep my scholarship. And during that time period, that's when I got introduced to this outreach ministry called Campus Outreach. And I got connected with some guys who were men of God who said, you got to get back connected to God. You got to get your life right with God. And I started back being faithful to God. And when I tell you God started to open up doors for my life, open up opportunities for my life, opened up people to my life that I really needed, breakthroughs, moments where I was crying, when I was down on my knees, just God showing me like this is the son that I had intended for you to be. And I started to be faithful. And guess what? When that school year was over, I got blessed with another scholarship to a Division II school to play football. Even when I wasn't faithful, y'all, God was still faithful. Even when I didn't know that God was making a way, he made a way. Even when I was going through the hardest moments of my life, God was still faithful. And I'm here to tell you today that because I lost my scholarship and because I was faithful to God, I am the man I am today. Y'all, I own real estate. Y'all work for an 8-figure sales company and I do sales. I own my own cleaning business that has been providing extra income for me for the past 5 years. In order for me to buy real estate, to give people jobs, to give the high school students that work with me, give them jobs that need help. That's the greatest feeling in the world. I just had a coach reach out to me and he said, listen, one of my students, man, he's struggling right now. He needs a job. I said, coach, send him my way. He can work with me this weekend. I picked him up. We worked all weekend. I paid him. He said, man, I'm so grateful, man. I remember I used to go work 7 hours with some other little job and they wouldn't pay me nothing but $40, $50. He worked with me for like 4 or 5 hours. I think I paid him like $100. And I promise you, I only do that because God was faithful to me when I wasn't faithful. So now God done blessed me to give back, to own businesses, to help my community, to go speak to communities and kids who just don't believe in themselves, and God allowing me to use my voice. See, God has always been faithful to me, even when I wasn't faithful. I want to ask you today, are you faithful to God? Have you given your life to Jesus Christ? Are you ready to be faithful so that God can show you who you really need to be for your life so that you can improve your life? Are you ready to take the next step and walk with God so that you can show God that you can be faithful, because he's already faithful to you? He's just waiting on you to be faithful to him so that he can open up more doors in your life, and that so you can chase after greatness, that you can chase after his love, his will, and his purpose for your life. Are you ready to be faithful to God? Because God has been faithful to you even though you ain't been faithful. And y'all, I just wanted to share my story with y'all because I believe that this story is going to help me change lives. And this story is going to help somebody who needs it. So I hope that this story helped you. I hope that you were blessed by this story. And I hope that God touched your life. Make sure that you like and subscribe so that we can change 1 billion lives. I need you guys' help, and I know that we can do it together. Christion Willett, the voice of my generation. I'm out.